Hello, everyone, and welcome to Twillow Talk. I'm Tanis Coughlin from the Twillow Lifestyle Community, Twillow Lifestyle Academy, and I am joined today by my beautiful host, Jennifer Jerkowski. How about you tell us what you do, Jen?
Sure. What do I do? Every time we do this, and every time I go, yeah, okay, because I don't know what I do all the time.
Don't let that fool you, folks. She's very good at what she does. She just doesn't know how to describe it. She's a psychotherapist.
Yes, registered psychotherapist, certified Canadian counselor, intuitive life coach. I use all different kinds of energy and energy healing, as well as tools like human design, Enneagram, all that kind of stuff to help us really understand kind of, our design and how we respond and react in the world. Yeah, there's more, but that's good.
She does stuff just like me. So I'm an intuitive energy healer and a Celtic shamanic high priestess, as well as a galactic ambassador. Guides were telling me to step into galactic shaman the other day, so we'll see how that fits. And and a channel. So we're really excited to be here today.
Mm-hmm.
And big shout out to Maruda. Hello, Maruda. Thank you for joining us. And as per usual, we usually give like a little update about what's happening in the world. I don't know about you guys, but it's a day.
It's a lot more than a day.
Well, I was just checking out the Schumann resonance because that's usually how we measure the vibration of the earth, which affects us, right? It affects how we feel. It affects our vibrational frequency. Yeah, the Schumann for the last couple of days, I mean, it has a baseline of 7.8 hertz. We've been up spikes over 80, like up and around 85, 90 for the last kind of 24 hours. So we've had these spikes going up. That is because of the solar storms that have been happening. I've had about 5 alerts just today about storm activity from the sun and how that's affecting us here. It's like hitting the atmosphere and affecting the pressures here and how we're feeling, which is really when they talk about the earth vibration raising, this is what they're talking about. So the earth's vibration is raising, which is raising our vibration, which is really happening for us. It's awesome.
Yes.
But we have a cleansing process that we go through. And so, we have these days. So I don't know about you guys, but I've been having a day. Jen, how are you doing?
Yeah, it's been interesting. Lots of cleaning out on many levels, like even physically, like not feeling great and just having things kind of go through and all of that. And again, there's a lot of releasing happening. Yeah, and it's interesting too, right? Because I think when we talked last time, we had been moving into the second gate, which is again that dislocation into orientation, right? And really kind of figuring out how to settle in and where we're at and understanding what that looks like and being okay with whatever that looks like. Right?
Those of you that are new with us, this is human design. She's talking human design language here.
Yeah.
In terms of the transits and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And so, we're just kind of on our way out from there today and tomorrow. And then we're going to be switching into a new transit, which actually is a full channel. So I often talk just about the sun transit. But the sun transit is really kind of the overall of what's happening right now. But then the earth transit is about what kind of grounds us. And so as of the 10th, we actually move into a channel. So the sun and the earth complete a channel for the next little bit. Which
is that a good thing?
Yeah.
Or is it very like up and down emotional, or what kind of energy should we expect?
Like all things, it is. And how we move with it is going to hey, it is.
She's consistent, folks.
Nothing else, right? So, yeah. So the sun is going into 23, which is about If we look at it from like the gene keys, the shadow into the gift and the siddhi, we're looking at complexity, right? So getting really wrapped up in all of the little details and trying to figure it all out. It's kind of like that idea of, trying to get all the pieces of the puzzle and doing it all at once, versus moving into simplicity, right? And then, of course, the city for that is quintessence, right? Where everything really has its place and we just allow that to be what it is. And that is connected to Earth 43, which is the channel of structuring, right? So in this, we're looking at going from deafness, right, where we just don't want to hear what's going,
Mhm.
into insight and then epiphany, right? So being able to allow space for that growth, right? And the channel itself is structuring, it's genius to freak, right? It's this idea of really bringing out breakthrough and change. And it's a huge energy to move us forward, but with everything that moves us forward, we have to let go,
Mhm.
right? Of the things that we're holding on to. And so it's, this idea of increased mental chatter. It's the idea of that pressure, right? They talk about like the monkey mind, that idea of just really wanting to think it all through.
Sorry.
Sorry. um, So, a lot of journaling over the next little bit and a lot of really taking the time, yeah, let go and flow, right? Allowing space for that and bringing in some self-compassion, right? Relieving the pressure. If you're having headaches, if you find that that's happening often, like recognize that there's some stuff that has to be released, and that's why it's that buildup of pressure. We talk about like brain gym and energy medicine stuff. Crown pulls are really great for this energy.
Mm.
Right? So
I was doing mine today.
yeah, right? And so you just go through putting the pressure in and really just opening up that space, right? And allowing room exactly for letting it go and flowing,
Yeah.
right? And allowing all of
My
that to
mantra for
flow.
right now.
Yeah. And of course,
Let
I have
go
to
and
do it to
flow.
completion because I can't start it and not finish it, right? But you come all the way down and then off the shoulders, whew, and let that go. Right? And so really just being mindful as we move into the next little bit, about how we experience what we hold on to, the way that we interpret.
Mm,
And
that's a big one.
yeah, it's gonna be huge, right? Because again, we talk about this often, right? The mind sees through filters and it wants to label and categorize and all that kind of stuff. And we need to make space for allowing things to just be. Right,
Yeah.
and not trying to figure out all those little details and, "Oh, they said this, and what is that supposed to mean, and how am I supposed to take that?" Whew, let's just right? Yeah. Let go and yeah,
That's
that's
our thing today. It's let
got
go
to
and
be the
flow.
mantra.
That's the mantra.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that's just been my thing for the last little while. It keeps coming up as a theme, for so many people. And speaking of people, I just want to say a big hello to Jackie. Thank you for joining us. Great to see you guys. And yeah, I mean, we could talk about let go and flow, or we could do what we usually do
Mhm.
and pick a card. So often, what we do on Twillow Talk, we pick a card from here, Soul's Journey, James Van Prague, and we pick a topic. And then we chat about it.
Well, the topics never seem very far from what we're actually talking about anyway, so
It is true. So
mhm.
we'll just
Let's just
wing
go.
it. Let's see what it says.
Mhm.
Maybe we'll end up combining the two today.
Mhm.
Let's see. So what are you guys working on letting go of and flowing with?
Mhm.
That's the question. Let go and flow. What do you need to let go and flow? Oh, well, I don't know. I suppose this would be part of that. Loneliness.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I know that I am never alone.
Mhm.
Abandonment issues. I know that I am never alone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, that speaks to not only our communities, but our spirit guides. They're always there to help us. Um, but there is always community.
Yeah.
Having your trusted community that you can go to and just be with, and not have to be anything else. So that would be the let go of inhibitions, and just flow with the moment. Those are your tribe, right? Those people that you can just let go and be, as you were saying, right?
Yeah.
And when you find them, you're never lonely, really, because they're never far, your tribe. But really, let's talk about loneliness. What does it mean to feel lonely? Because it's not about the people around you. It's not about having people around you.
No. Well,
It's more
and
about
that's
the types of people around you, right?
yeah. But also being alone is a tangible kind of state. But loneliness is very much an internal process,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we can be all by ourselves and not feel alone, not
Right.
feel lonely.
And the opposite. You could be in a full
We can
room
be
of people and
and
feel
feel
very
very,
lonely.
very lonely.
Yeah.
And so I think that it is an important piece to recognize that loneliness in and of itself is very much a state of being. It's not necessarily related to what's around us or who's around us.
Right. Very much so. Yeah.
Right. And so when we talk about, well, what we've been going through, right? So we've moved, it's interesting because we're just coming off of the the second gate, right? And the siddhi or the enlightened state for that is unity,
Right.
right? And so it's a
Which
really
is,
interesting thing how it all kind of fits together.
it's true.
And it is very much this idea, right? We talk about it's it's so funny. Just before the show, I had this whole big thing about shadow that was coming, and it was like, oh, well, you'll get to talk about this, and I was like, well, I don't know that, but here it is,
Okay.
right?
Let's talk about shadow. What
Um,
is shadow? Shadow
this
work.
idea of shadow work exactly, and how we often look at this thing is that we have to overcome the shadow and all of that, and the reality is we need to accept the shadow part because it's
Yeah.
it's part of all things, right? And so when we look at the shadow for the second gate, we're looking at dislocation, right? And again, it's that feeling like we need to figure it all out and we have to have all of the answers. And so we don't feel like we're grounded and we don't feel like we know where we're supposed to be. And in that, there is great loneliness,
Yeah.
right? Because we're constantly striving for something. And if we're able to really step back from that and make space to see, you know, what am I doing and how am I expressing myself right now that is serving me or not serving me,
Mm-hmm.
right? How am I moving along my path or how am I resisting movement on my path
And
that
why?
and why, right? That's blocking clarity for me,
Yeah.
right? And so when we think about, embracing and, allowing and accepting the shadow piece, this dislocation and going, okay, yeah, this loneliness or this feeling like I'm not moving in the direction I want or whatever the feeling is that's coming up, if we can recognize our own role in what that looks like, then we can move into orientation and ultimately move into unity, right?
Right.
Where that loneliness is not even part of.
Yeah. So
Right?
Jackie says, I'm physically alone since my hubby died 3 years ago and my daughter moved to the US last August. I made a best friend and got so much comfort from the spiritual community and doesn't feel alone.
Mhm.
Beautiful.
That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
that's finding your tribe, right?
Mhm.
We find our tribe and we don't feel alone.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
and it's
And
such a
they can
beautiful
be all over
thing
the
to
world.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
I
and
know
to
that's one thing that COVID brought forward too, right?
Mhm.
was that we found community not necessarily in our geographic location, but we
Yeah.
found community like all over the world, you know.
Mhm.
Like we've got followers from Australia, we have followers from the UK, all over the States, all over Canada,
Mhm.
you know, and I just think that's such a beautiful thing that we can all come together in one goosebumps even. Um, that we
Mhm.
can all come together
Yeah.
in, and it's all about love. It's about joining together in that unity, like you were saying, right? To be one because we are one, but it's acknowledging that and stepping into conversation about being one that's so
Mhm.
important. And that way we don't have the loneliness factor,
Mhm. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. And so if you're in a place where you're kinda like, "Okay, you know what? I am feeling this loneliness come up," right? What are the narratives going on in your
Mm,
mind, right? What are the beliefs that you have about connection that are bringing these feelings to you,
yeah,
right? Because all of the feelings that we have, and we've talked about this so many times, they're just guideposts for us,
yeah.
right? To say, okay, what's really going on for me right now? And so being able to recognize the feeling and not scrambling to try to get rid of it, but being able to kind of sit with it and go, okay, what's really going on for me right now? And where do I feel like I need to move from here? And I
Hmm.
don't mean physically move, but maybe physically move, but
Maybe,
just
or
in
maybe
general
just
flow.
emotionally.
Exactly.
Yeah. Hmm.
Mm.
So Marita says, I've been isolated since COVID started, but haven't felt too terribly alone because of all the live streams on YouTube in the tarot community. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. It's a great community, you know,
Yeah,
so
really.
blessed to be part of that. Blessed to be part of your community as well, Marita and
Mm.
Jackie and all of you that are on, because we have a few others that are
Mhm.
lurking. Um, Jackie says her best friend is in the US and she's in the UK. Yeah, exactly. Hmm.
Yeah.
For sure. I have
Well,
wonderful
yeah.
friends in those places as well, you know?
Mhm. The world has gotten much smaller in so many ways.
It has.
Mhm.
Mhm. Definitely. Have you guys ever had that experience, though, where you're in a full room of people and you feel lonely?
Mhm.
I certainly have.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, you know, in terms of the energy healing piece, sometimes that's because we have some blockages in that sort of between the emotional, mental emotional layers and the spiritual layers. Sometimes we get some dense pockets in there that help to create that for us. But chicken or egg, which one comes first, right? Often we'll start to have that feeling, and then those blocks come because of the mental patterns that we're going through,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
Maruta says yes, definitely. She's kind of a shy girl.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because going into the human design side of things too, depending on your type, that also really impacts it and the type of
Mhm.
people you're around, right? And so for me, I'm much better with one-on-one than I am with large groups around me. Because with large groups around me, it's very difficult to direct my attention to
Mhm.
just one person because as a projector, it's very much one-on-one. And so I often will pull myself out of the group entirely and just sit and watch until somebody comes to talk to me. Only because I know that that's how my energy needs to flow, that I can't just be in a huge group, and have those interactions and my energy, it drains me so quickly.
Yeah, yeah. Believe it or not, Jen and I are kind of shy as well. I know I
Mhm,
don't seem it because I'm a bit of an extrovert, but I do have my moments where I'm really sort of shy. Like I'm probably more like Jen. I like a smaller group of people. When we get like a big group, I'm kind of like overwhelmed with the energy and I'm not sure, you know, what
mhm.
to do often. So
Yeah.
Maruta says same, like one or two people at most. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Often it seems that a lot of sensitives are like that, you
Yeah.
know, and I can be extroverted with a group of people that I really know that is, you know, under 10, for instance. But you put me in a room like with 100 people, and I'm like, what do I do with that? One, I have to make sure that I'm like geared up with my tubing and everything, but also I'm
Mhm.
like, mm, I don't know who to talk to. So that's kind of like what happens with you, Jen. You know, I think that you and I are different in how we, because you're more the introvert and I'm more the extrovert, but in
Mhm.
many ways there's that similarity. I think it's because of the sensitivity
Yeah. Well, and
that
that's
we're
a huge
cautious.
piece too, right? Especially for people who are like, let's say clairsentient, right? Where you walk
Mhm.
into a room and all of a sudden you just feel everyone.
Yeah,
Right? It's overwhelming.
it
And
is.
so, what you were talking about earlier, where then you begin to kind of shut down and put up those walls, and it's a self-preservation thing,
It
right?
is, yeah.
Because you can't handle feeling that. Like, I'll walk into a room and I know who has hip problems, whose knees are hurting, who's having stomach issues. Like it's on
Physical
top of
empath. Mhm.
all of the emotional stuff, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah,
You're right? Like, we have to, like, suck that in, wall that up, and then all of a sudden, it's like, "Well, I'm not sure how open I can be in this moment," right? And,
that's right. Yeah. I
you
mean,
know, and then
and you and I were talking about like the emotional intimacy thing, and
mhm,
how do you put yourself out there when you're so sensitive?
yeah,
Because it's difficult because you want to be not authentic. Authentic's not really the word, but you want to be open.
mhm,
But then, you do have this. I've
yeah,
done this before, and I've been in this big group, and I was open, and I was like overwhelmed. So how do I do that, right?
yeah. I
So
like,
Maruta's like
Rita's
you, eh?
comment there. Yeah. Yeah, that's very much me.
Yeah,
And as a projector, it works perfectly for me, but as other high energy types, maybe not so much. And I agree with you. I was actually just gonna go there, Maruta, so thank you for bringing it up. Like, not, small talk.
yeah.
I don't wanna talk about the weather, and I don't really care, like, about what's happening in the news and, any of that kinda stuff, and so, being
Yeah.
able to really have, like what Tanis was just saying, that intimacy, that deeper connection with people, that's it. If we can't go a little deeper, if we can't connect on that soul level, ugh, that's
I mean, there's value in it to an extent because it's like adding grist to our lives, right? We have to, how you have to put yourself out there to
Right,
make
but you're,
yourself
like, good with
resilient.
that whole, like, networking and powwowing and all that kinda stuff, whereas I'm like, "Let's sit and talk about all the existential stuff in the world, and okay, I'll see you later."
Yeah.
Right?
I'm great with the existential chat too. That's really more where my head is, but
Right, but that kind of, um, energy to, like, meet and greet and all that kinda stuff, like,
yeah.
we've talked about that so much, like, I'll come to a trade show with you or something like that, and I'm like, "I'm just gonna sit back, and you can introduce me, but you do the networking piece." I just don't have it in me. I tried. I tried, and bless his heart, JP, when I went to that one, event, and he's like, "Come on, Jen, let's go for a walk." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you," 'cause I just can't do it. I just can't
That's the
do
one
it.
we met at, I think.
Mhm. Maybe,
Yeah,
yeah, I think
I think it
so.
might have been. Yeah.
Um But yeah, it's, and it's different too, right? Because there are people who they thrive on that.
Mhm.
And they thrive on going from person to person and having all of those different connections, even if they're just a little bit, and you see it, right? You can see who's kind of that social butterfly who's floating from thing to thing to thing and all of that, and you can, it's not to say that they can't go deep. I'm not saying that at all.
No,
I
because I still do the butterfly thing.
Yeah,
I do it, but I also need the other, what are they called? Omniverts?
omnivert.
Omniverts.
Mhm.
So I'm an omnivert. So I can do the butterfly thing for a little bit, and then all of a sudden it's like, "Oh, I'm exhausted. I need my time."
Well,
Small dose for
I
me.
think the whole, like, idea of introvert and extrovert is really we can all be all things in the sense of being able to be out there or being able to be, alone with ourselves. It's really about how we recharge,
Yeah, true.
right? And so I can social butterfly it, and I have. It drains me so
Yeah,
much,
yeah,
right? Whereas for other people, that's very much how they recharge, is being out there and connecting with people, right? And so it's not that we can only do one thing or we can't do the other. We're all omnivores in the sense of being able to do it,
true.
generally speaking. But it's really about how we recharge our energy, right?
Yes. I
Yeah,
agree, Jackie.
that
People watching is easier than conversation.
most definitely.
And I think that was where I originally started tapping into intuition, because
Mhm.
I remember sitting there, and I used to do this with my husband. We'd sit on a bench in a mall or something, and we'd be like, "They're having this happen today. They've had a fight, and they're like, they're doing this to whatever," and we'd make up stories about people.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that is me reading into their energy, or how much of, because I don't, you never know, because it's not like we talk to them, they're strangers. But I sometimes wonder if that
Mhm.
was a way for me to tap into starting to read energies and starting to do that sort of the readings kind of thing, tapping into energy and people's doing psychic stuff is what I mean, right? I
Mhm.
don't know. It's
Yeah.
fun. It's people watching. It's fun. It's fascinating. Storytelling.
Yeah. As long as you're not connecting all the time, because that can
Right.
become really hard.
Well, and you don't want to connect with the energy necessarily, because that's kind of intrusive too.
Mhm.
So I don't think we were doing this. Was probably I did that more before I sort of jumped into my spiritual journey than I do now. But um, before, there's ethics behind all of it. um, Now I'm a little more aware, so I don't do that in the same way. I do it, but it's more I keep my energy. I'm conscious of keeping
Mm.
my energy, but thinking, I wonder,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I'm
Well,
pretty sure before I was probably doing that without realizing it, and I think a lot of people do. You know.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and we were talking about, the idea of being lonely in a big crowd of people. And I think sometimes too, we can feel very lonely even one on one with somebody if we don't feel heard
Hmm.
or we don't feel like we're being respected or there's, invalidating kind of stuff going on,
Hmm.
right? And that can be very lonely too,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
And so, again, really kind of paying attention to, um, how we're narrating our experience is really, really important, because otherwise we can end up having a lot of suffering in a lot of
Hmm.
different ways.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think there's that's where you have the authentic. We mentioned the word intimacy, right? We have the
Mhm,
authentic intimacy when you can actually have those kind of heart to heart conversations. And if you're
mhm.
not, if that has to be both sides.
Yeah,
It has to be both people sort of opening up into that. And if not, then it just feels
yeah.
lonely or empty, right?
Mhm.
And that's often what happens at those networking things. Those of us that don't really want to talk about the weather, we want to talk about existential and metaphysical things.
Mhm.
If that's not available to talk about, how do we connect with people on that level,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
Well, and then I
Jackie's calling me nosy. I
that's why I
was.
was laughing earlier. I saw
I
that.
was. I was indeed. Yeah. Not intentionally. It was really, I just thought I was making up stories. But when I look back at it now, I do think that I was probably in their energy.
Mhm. Well, and sometimes it you're not trying and it just hits you,
It's true. Hmm.
right? And that happens too. I remember I don't go to the mall often for good reason. I am not a
Yeah.
mall person. I know some people love it. When I was a kid, it was like the place to go to hang
Yeah.
out. I am not a mall person. But I remember walking up the stairs. It was actually we were doing holiday shopping or something, a couple of years ago, and I remember I got halfway up the stairs and I was like, "I feel like I'm gonna pass out." Now I can walk up a flight of
Yeah,
stairs.
it's not a physical thing, folks.
And and I was like, "Ooh, where did that come from?" And I saw a woman who was walking down the stairs, and I stopped my partner, and I was like, "I don't know that I don't think that person's okay." And sure enough, within, but not even, a couple seconds later, she started to go down, and luckily somebody was right next to her and grabbed
Oh,
her.
good. Yeah.
So everything was okay, and I didn't go and say anything because it's not my place. I knew she was okay because she was with somebody. But I think that sometimes too, it would be really easy to take that energy and feel it
Mhm.
and be like, "Oh, no, there's something wrong with me," and then create a problem
Right. Yes.
in that moment. Whereas, sometimes those energies, emotional energies, physical energies, whatever they are, just come at us and we're like, "Whoa, what is going on there?"
Yeah,
And, all emotions, including loneliness, can be those kinds of
for
things,
sure.
right?
All I have to say is, phew, thank goodness, Jackie, I'm not alone. I we're all lonely, I think is what you or we're all, nosy.
I think it's
Nosy, not
nosy.
lonely. We're all nosy, yes. And a big hello to Scott. Hello from
Hi,
Scott,
Scott.
Scorpio and Sun Tarot. Good to see you. Yeah,
Yeah. Mm,
definitely. We have a
yeah.
beautiful community on today, thank you.
Mhm. And it's this is such an amazing thing, right? Because of the community like this, there's always people to connect to, right? There's always things going on. As what I don't know if it was Jackie or Maruta who were saying it earlier, but like the way that we've had these online communities and things and everything, and it keeps everybody
It
connected,
does. Yeah.
right?
Even on those
It's
days when you don't feel like you can actually face people in our
yeah.
physical.
It sometimes allows for a little bit of the
Yeah,
distance.
yeah,
I can feel you, and I don't have to feel you.
yeah, exactly.
Although I still feel you
We can
anyway.
chat, but, there's no time or space. Who are we fooling?
No.
I think we're just fooling ourselves.
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah, yeah.
So true. Yeah.
That's something to remember too with our topic, right?
Mhm.
Because it that I mean, you and I have talked about this before, the illusion of separation
Yeah.
in terms of we are all one, we're all connected all the time. The separation or that abandonment thing is really illusion, and there is no time or space.
Mhm.
So, if we were all great at astral travel, we could just go back and be in whatever moment we wanted to be, whenever we wanted to be, and we would never be lonely.
Yeah, we'd also never be present.
True. But what is present, Jen? But what is present?
Yeah. But, it's interesting, right? Because we talk about, again, like, loneliness, and
True.
you're talking about illusion, and it is so much this idea of, again, how are we narrating our experience,
Yeah.
right? Because if we're buying into the illusion, then we're definitely suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is true, Maruta.
Yes, Maruda.
The thing is, here we get to choose the energy we let in to a great extent. True. Very
Very true.
true. You can just turn off the screen and I'm not there anymore. You don't have to listen to me. We don't want you to do that because we love the fact that you're here. But,
Yep.
we accept that you need to control your computer.
If you don't agree, just hit mute. Wait. Stop moving? Okay, unmute. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the other piece too, right? Is for all of this idea of separation, we're also all in it together. Blocking is a thing. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. I would never do that to you, Marita. I'm just saying. But, there are times when this is necessary. We all know we have those lovely trolls on occasion that this is required.
They get blocked. Yeah.
They get blocked. Yes. Not the lovely people like are here today.
No.
Yes. So for those of you that are just joining us, loneliness is our card for the day.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I am never alone is the mantra.
Jackie, I love that comment. Boundaries
Yes.
need to be kept.
Indeed.
Right? And how often do we let go of our boundaries or let them down or, go against them just because we're lonely or because we don't feel accepted or because we don't feel connected?
Mm-hmm. It's true. No, thank you, Marita.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, boundaries are so important, whether it's, even online, boundaries are important. We have to, it's still our energy that we send out and all of that. Being respectful of each other online. I think sometimes on social media, people, they tend to say more than they might if they were actually in person in conversations, different boundaries. People have different boundaries online. They I think they find it easier to ignore other people's boundaries, or it's harder to determine what other people's boundaries are online. To be generous, sometimes it's harder to determine what other people's boundaries are.
Yeah.
But disrespect looks pretty much the same for most people.
Yeah.
Yeah. That kind of energy is
but also
unfortunate, let's say.
Yeah.
It's really just about their energy. Like, it's never a reflection on wherever they're putting it, right? So if someone makes a poor comment or whatever, it really reflects everything about them.
Yeah.
And where they're at, as opposed to whoever they're doing the comment at or to, or whatever the topic is, right? It's really much more about what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you can hide behind an avatar.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
For sure.
kindness is kindness and cruelty is cruelty across the board.
Yeah, we did have one not long ago that was pretty cruel. Not very nice.
No.
They got blocked.
Well, like you said, it's important to remember that whatever they're saying is about them.
That's right.
Right? And
it is. Yeah.
But I think even, going back to the boundaries thing for a minute with Jackie's comment, not just online, but in our day-to-day lives, like how many things do we say yes to that we want to say no to? Or say no to that we want to say yes to, right? And recognizing, that we have these boundaries for ourselves for a reason.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes we haven't even set boundaries. Right? And then there's a whole other thing that goes along with that. And so, recognizing again, like, that flow idea, right? And how do we, and in the moment, allow ourselves to feel into what's right for us in that moment.
It's true.
Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Michelle. Nice to see you. Yes, definitely fear of judgment impedes boundaries, right? We tend to be afraid to be judged if we have a boundary in a certain space, a certain place, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's a big one. That's a big fear for many people.
Yeah, and it comes back down again to loneliness.
Yeah.
If I'm being judged, I'm not going to have these connections. These people aren't going to want to be with me.
Yeah.
Right? We are such communal beings, even those of us who love being alone.
You need to know you have the community, right? You need to
Mhm.
know you have the community and that you have the choice to engage or not when you need to, right?
Exactly. Exactly, and so setting that boundary, you're absolutely right, Marita, like, the fear that somebody's gonna judge it or that somebody's gonna be offended because of it or that they're gonna, again, it's that idea of they're not gonna like me if I
Mhm.
set this boundary,
Yeah.
and then I'm gonna be alone.
Wow, that's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah.
That fear of abandonment
Mhm.
really, really gets us. That and that inner child work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about it now, but really it is pretty valuable stuff,
Mhm.
you know. Then
Yeah.
Michelle says so true. In my experiences, those who get angry when you set the boundary are the ones you need to set the boundaries for. Yeah, often.
Mhm. Yeah,
Often.
and those who want to cut you off because you set a boundary are probably those who are better off not being in your life.
So we do this. Our other mantra for the day.
I love it. Yeah, but it's not easy, right? It's
No,
not easy when it's people that we care about.
that's right.
It's not easy when it's business stuff. It's not
Mhm.
easy when, there's some kind of tie and connection there. It's hard. It's hard to say, you know what, this isn't serving me and I need to let it go,
Yeah,
and that's okay, right? We have to honor that process.
yeah, it's true. As much as that might be difficult.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. But setting the boundaries is a good first step,
yeah,
right? And then we're able to, see where we can be more. I know you said authentic wasn't quite the word, but more open
mhm.
and
Open.
where we can't,
Yeah,
right? And really knowing what serves us and what doesn't, and who serves us and who doesn't,
yeah,
right? And I don't mean that in a self-serving kind of way. I very much mean that in a, part of our fractal, part of our journey kind of way.
yeah, yeah. Which ones are helping us to live through our meant for experience, our soul experience,
Right?
in the way that we're meant to
Yeah.
live
And
it.
sometimes that also means the bad guys. The bad guys.
Yeah, it does. Because that's
Yeah.
the grist, right? We don't move, we don't change, we don't grow if we don't have some grist to go up against. Because otherwise we get in our comfort zone and we just stay there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome to being human.
Right?
I think I must say that every show. Welcome to being
Mhm.
human.
Yeah.
We're human. Yeah,
Yeah. But it's such a beautiful learning ground,
it is.
right? And I think, again, we come back to our own personal narratives because it's really important, right? You go through an experience, and let's say, you know what? Yeah, that fear of judgment jumped in, and you let go of a boundary. Somebody trampled all over it. And instead of going, that person trampled all over my boundary, that wasn't okay, we go, what is wrong with me? Why did I let that boundary down? What? I can't stand when I do this.
Yeah,
We
and
have
we
to
get
bring in
self-deprecating.
Yeah, we have to bring in that self-compassion and we have to recognize it's okay, right? It's experience and we can learn and grow from it and we can choose how we move forward from it. But
Yeah.
we have to let go of that beating ourselves up because of it.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of us that are really good at that. And I think it depends on the situation. Some of
Mhm.
us do it more in certain areas, right?
Yeah.
And often it's easier in even a workplace or something than it might be with your friends and family,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Setting boundaries brings division. Honoring boundaries brings unity.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's interesting though, right? Like, because we talk about this idea of love, and I think everybody thinks, it's this like, ah,
Love.
kind of
Yes,
thing,
it's love.
right?
Well, it
But
is love, but there's more to it
but love is
than
a very powerful, very strong, very firm kind of thing,
mhm.
right? And so when we set a boundary, there is love in that,
Mhm.
right? If we hold space for it, and if it's an appropriate boundary to set,
Yeah.
right? And so, if we can recognize that if I set a boundary, I'm honoring what I need, but I'm also honoring you by expressing the boundary,
Right.
right?
Oh,
And saying
tough
this is
love. Yeah.
how, you know, this is how we can connect, and this is how I feel okay right now. And then as you honor that boundary and set your own, we develop that relationship of respect and mutual love that opens, right? And then that can
Mhm.
change over time. But if we never set that boundary in the first place, there's going to ultimately be division.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet it's very difficult for people that are empaths too to set those boundaries. And the fear of
Yeah.
holding them is challenging, right?
Yeah.
Because the judgment
Well,
that they feel from others it can be almost a physical kind of shove, right? When we have that kind of thing. So I think being sensitive, that's certainly something for me that I've felt when you when you bump up against that kind of thing, that being physical empath, that I can sometimes feel it physically, and that's
mhm.
uncomfortable, we'll say.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's uncomfortable because of the narrative we put with it,
Hmm.
and because we don't like
Right.
discomfort, right? And so if we can allow for that experiential acceptance, right, in that moment of kind of just going, "Okay, this person doesn't like this. That's okay."
Yeah.
Right? And if we can get through this, we'll know if this is meant to be a connection or not. But whew, it takes work, and that is not something that we nail every time, that is for sure.
Ooh. Again, welcome to being human.
Human.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you guys? How do you feel about being able to set the boundary and hold it? Because for me, I sometimes I can set it, but holding it is more of a challenge. What are your thoughts?
Mhm.
Hmm.
Mhm.
I'm better with my boundaries since I got older. I used to hate saying no, but now I'm braver. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that is something that as we get older, we tend to become a little more resilient, I think, with saying no. But that takes work too, that personal development work to be able to step
Yeah.
into. So good for you, Jackie. That's great. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And it really does, it takes so much courage to be able to set a boundary and honor it,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not what we're told. When we grow up, it's, we have to be this way, and we have to do this thing,
Yeah.
and we have to just, whatever it is, our parents say we have to do it. And if it's contradictory, you got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? This is that childhood
It
wounding stuff,
is.
right? And so it takes a lot of courage to be able to say, no, this is my truth, and I have to honor it.
Hmm. So Maruta says I may have gotten slightly overreactive with my boundary keeping. But who told you that? Where are you getting that from? That it's overreactive? Is that a self
Mm.
judgment? Is that somebody that told you you were being overreactive?
And I'd be curious if that person who told you wasn't having their own little tantrum about it.
Because that often happens, right? We tell someone you're being
Mhm.
defensive when it's that person's being defensive, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, and it's tough too when you think about how, if we go for so long without setting a boundary and then we set it, people don't tend to like that.
it is true. That is a challenge. And that's what often shifts friendships and stuff, right? Is
Mhm.
when that happens. So, but we
Yeah.
change. There's a necessity to do that because we grow, we learn, and so there's sometimes a change that change has to happen in terms of setting a boundary now from where you were.
Yeah.
So Michelle says, me too, Jackie.
Yeah.
Setting boundaries with others, especially family, was very difficult when I was younger. Getting better at it now. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's leftover
Yeah,
suspicions from
definitely.
previous. Okay. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, and oftentimes when we talk about suspicions and things like that and our guard being up when it comes to relationships, it's because somebody didn't honor
Yeah.
us and somebody didn't, you know, give us the space to set boundaries, let alone hold
Yeah.
them,
So we
right?
don't practice that when we're
And
younger. So it is something that we
mhm,
have to practice to get better at. And so it is
yeah,
that it totally makes sense. We're all feeling that way, that as we got older, we got better at it. And I think that that is because we have more opportunity to practice. And as we become
mhm,
adults and become more independent, there is more of that opportunity to enforce the boundary and with love and compassion, but enforce the boundary. Right.
mhm,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, it's boundaries are a funny thing. And it's amazing how they're so different for everybody, right? And the other hard part, do you ever find this? My boundary today might be different from my boundary tomorrow. Today I can do
and
an
that's
hour and a half in a room full of people that I don't know. Tomorrow I might do 5 minutes, and that's it. That's my boundary for the day.
it's so true.
So then
It's so true. And
being gentle.
this is where knowing ourselves
Yeah.
is so
Yeah.
important. And knowing how to connect with our truth is vital because if we don't learn that, then we're constantly looking to the external stuff to decide what the boundary is going to be versus really going in and saying, no, like this is how I have to roll,
Yeah. But
right?
there's also
Like for
there's
me,
also the human design people that are in that design
mhm,
that's not they they're not
that's
able to
what I'm
do
going
that,
to talk to.
right?
So for me, because I'm very my authority is splenic, it's very in the now. So if you ask me if I wanna do something a month from now, I don't know if I'm gonna have the energy for that a month from now or not. So I have to be very, very careful about what I commit to
Right.
on a regular basis. Whereas in the moment, I could say, "Hey, what are you doing this afternoon?"
Right.
If I have the energy for it and I know I do, I'm good to go. Right? But if I try to plan something a month out, 2 months out, whatever, even a week out
Yeah.
sometimes, I'm just like, and even Twillow Talk was one of those things, and I
Yeah.
remember going, "Okay, every Monday, okay." Like, I had to really allow myself to, like, feel into it, and we had to do it a couple times, and then we missed a couple because I had to get to that place where I was like, "Yes, this is part of my flow, and I'm okay
Yeah.
with it."
Yeah.
Right?
And we all have our
But
things
other
like that. Yeah.
right. But other people don't have that in the
Mhm.
moment, right? They're emotional. They need to ride the wave before they know what they can do or not do with bigger commitment kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Because I actually tend to be
Um,
more in the moment when it comes to, like, day-to-day stuff,
yeah.
but I think that's because I assess where my energy's at,
Yeah, well, your spleen is
like you
also
do.
defined. So you're able to
Yeah.
in the moment kinda go yeah or no. For the
The
day-to-day
little
stuff,
things, the little yeah.
it's the bigger stuff that ride the emotional wave for.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, the bigger stuff still comes through my spleen because I don't have my solar plexus defined,
Right.
right? And so I have to, one, follow my strategy, which recognition, invitation, sometimes hard to sit back and wait. But when it shows up in the moment, I know, yes, I'm doing it or no, I'm not.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
And Maruda has a good comment here, about the boundary thing.
Mhm.
When someone respects your boundaries, you feel safer to let them go deeper. It's true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. And so with new people, maybe we have more boundaries, and that's okay.
Mhm.
Right? I think we also have to recognize our own self-judgments around everything, right?
Yeah.
And it's so funny because even at the beginning of today, and you'd asked me about the transits, and I was like, "It just is. It's not good, it's not bad." But, that is such a huge mantra for me because,
Yeah.
I go back again, Shakespeare, "Nothing is good or bad, but thinking makes it so,"
Yeah.
right? We have to recognize the judgments that we're holding around different things so that we really understand the impact that they have for us,
Mhm.
right?
That's sometimes that's even difficult to realize when you're in an emotionalized state, right?
Mhm.
So when you're in reactive mode,
Yeah, well, you
it's
can't feel
difficult to realize that you're judging yourself. I mean, you and I have had talks like that where I've been like,
it. Mhm.
all emotional, and then I'm like, why am I so emotional? And we get to the bottom of it, and I'm judging myself for this or for that, and I'm like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, I'm doing that again.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well, and it's not easy work. It's simple work, but it's not easy work,
Yes,
right? We
exactly.
talk about that becoming the observer, and what does that really mean,
Yeah.
right? And it's can we sit back in a moment where we're crying and go, "Wow, there's a lot of sadness here."
Hmm.
Okay, there's sadness. It's gonna
Hmm.
flow, the tears are gonna flow, it is what it is,
Hmm.
right? Because that we can navigate.
Yeah,
Right? But when we get
it's
into the
easier.
narrative and we get into, "Oh, this is wrong and that's wrong and this is da da da," we're feeding a fire that we're not gonna be able to control,
Yeah. And
right?
that's
And
when we start going into fight or flight. We turn that frontal lobe off, and then we can't get into the, you know,
yeah,
flow of things.
yeah, and that is where basic exercise stuff comes into play,
Right. Right.
right? When you're feeling like, "Okay, everything is just falling apart
Hmm.
and I'm not thinking clearly anymore, no more social engagement, ventral vagal state gone," right? That kind
Yeah.
of thing. Basic exercise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Michelle says in marketing and promotions, we have to plan months out. I have to schedule time throughout the week to rest and do remedies to avoid burnout. It's a work in progress. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a work in progress for all of us, that kind of thing, for sure. Yeah. Because when we're not at our best, too, we don't make the best decisions, or we don't do our best work or whatever that is,
Mm.
you know. I and we don't always recognize it in the moment that we're
Mhm.
feeling tired or we're getting that sort of burnout feeling,
Yeah.
unless we take the time. So that's, I know it's important to sit back and go, okay, what does my body need right now? And try and
Mhm.
honor that. That's the trick with it.
Yeah,
What
that's
does my
key.
body need? What does my psyche need? Like, what does my energy need? What does my spirit need? What do we need?
Mm.
Body, spirit, mind.
Yeah. And then honoring it.
Yeah, and sometimes the honoring it is more challenging, you know.
Mhm.
In our task-based world where we must get this task done at a certain time, um, then it is more challenging to be able to honor every need that you have. I think that many times we, don't eat because we're in the middle of something and we have to get this done, or we don't go for the walk that we mean to go to because we're too busy in front of the computer, or so really that honoring self is that's why there's so much talk about
Mhm.
self-care and all of that right now, right?
Yeah.
It's really being able to honor that. And I know for me it's a work in progress still. I'm still working on that piece, but you know
Mhm.
it's a worthy cause to keep working on, for sure.
Most
Yeah.
definitely. Most definitely. And Michelle, I love that setting time in the
Yeah.
schedule, right? And I remember, I will go into my schedule and purposefully put in 15-minute, 30-minute
Yeah.
breaks throughout my day because I know that if I don't, it'll get
Yeah.
booked, right? And it's important to, once you've done that, actually take the
Yeah.
breaks,
Yeah. For sure.
right? And allow that space. And that's not always easy because yeah, we get caught up in stuff or things come up. And again, going back to the comment about not setting the boundaries because of, fear of judgment or whatever other fear might be coming up, we give up our own time that we need to recruit, to ground, to
Yeah.
whatever. And then, we do end up facing burnout and exhaustion. And we just, you
Yeah.
know, are running on half steam, and now nothing's going well. And then it's a spiral,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I do try to leave space in my schedule usually, for a short nap if I need it, for instance. That the joys of being an
Mhm,
entrepreneur, right? And knowing myself that there's certain parts of the week that are much busier. So I know that,
mhm,
Sunday, Mondays are usually really busy for me. So like Tuesday, I try to make sure I at least have a nap time so that I can sort of
mhm,
catch up and I center myself that day. You know, that's kind of what I mean by making sure I have that time, right?
mhm.
Yeah, me too, Jackie. I love my naps. And they're so good for us, really.
Mhm.
On that note,
Yeah.
the fact that we all love naps and we like to schedule nap time,
Mhm.
we've come.
Are you gonna go have a nap, Gladys?
No, no, I have another event tonight, actually an in-person spiritual evening at my house tonight. So we've got, and that's
Oh,
at 7.
wonderful.
So that's our enlightenment evening. So that ought to be a lot of fun. We're talking about
Mhm.
grounding tonight, which is perfect
Perfect.
topic for tonight with all these energies that are bringing us up here. And,
Mhm.
there's lots going on with the Twillow lifestyle community this week. I have this tonight. We have a trauma release thing tomorrow evening with Dr. Karen Stillman. I have the masters in Aqualead on Saturday during the day, and
Mhm.
Michelle's awesome intro to Vedic astrology starts this Saturday. So I'm really excited about that. So if you guys are
Mhm. And
interested,
Wednesday night, you guys are doing your,
yes, we have our
regular
yes,
Wednesday night?
exactly. Yeah, we also have our show with Michelle this week on
Mhm.
Wednesday where we're doing our live readings. And we did Ramsey's show last week, so that will be next week for him, not this week. So yeah, so
Mhm.
lots happening this week with the Twillow Lifestyle
Yeah.
community. So check it out at twillowlifestyle.ca. And thank you, Maruta, for joining us. And
Oh, thank you.
also to Jackie. It was lovely to spend time with you as well.
Mhm.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Michelle, for joining us. Grounding is
Mhm.
key after these last 2 eclipses.
Oh, yes.
So breathe and ground and
Mhm.
let go and flow.
Going
And we wish you an awesome week. And we'll see you here again next week, or join us in all of the amazing activities that are going on this week. Okay? Have a great time, guys. Lots of love.